Plateaus are some of the most beautiful landscapes on Earth. Towering far above the surrounding land, they often stretch across entire regions. So, here's the top 15 highest plateaus in the world. Starting with number 15, the Altiplano de Granada. Sometimes simply called the Granada Plateau, it's a region located in the province of Granada in southern Spain. It sits at an average elevation of around 1,000 to 1,200 meters above sea level, with certain sections rising a bit higher. Although it's not nearly as high as like the Great Asian Plateaus, it stands out on the European continent for its altitude and geography. The region was formed through a combination of tectonic uplift and erosion, which happened over millions of years. The area forms a semi-enclosed basin, and this dry environment is the result of the rain-shadow effect caused by the surrounding mountains, which block the moist air from reaching the region. The result is a continental climate with hot summers, cold winters, and limited rain. It's got some pretty cool features like the Badlands with deep gullies and ravines carved into the sediment. These landforms create a landscape that appears barren, but it's home to some specialized vegetation which is adapted to these conditions. Scrub plants, grasses, and shrubs dominate the region, while cultivated fields can be found in valleys where the water is more available. Today, small towns and villages like Guadix and Baza are spread across this area. Guadix in particular is known for its cave dwellings that are carved into the rock, which provided insulation from the plateau's temperatures. Agriculture has long been the backbone of the plateau's economy here, though it does require careful water management. Cereals, olives, almonds, and some vegetables are cultivated here in the irrigated fields, while sheep and goat grazing remain important in more marginal areas. In recent years, the plateau has also gained some attention for renewable energy projects, with large solar installations taking advantage of the clear skies. Fossil finds in the region, too, have included remains of prehistoric mammals like mastodons and rhinoceroses, which roamed the area millions of years ago. These discoveries make the plateau an area of interest for researchers that are studying the environmental changes that shaped southern Europe. While not among the world's tallest plateaus, it does earn a place on this list because of the elevation relative to its region. It is a prime example of how life endures in these challenging environments. Number 14. The Ethiopian Highlands. The Ethiopian Highlands is often called the roof of Africa. It's one of the most striking high plateau regions in the world. It covers much of Ethiopia and extends into Eritrea. It has an average elevation of about 2,000 to 3,000 meters, with peaks surpassing over 4,500 meters in places. And while it's not as high overall as the Tibet or Andes, its altitude relative to its surrounding lowlands makes it one of the most dominant plateau systems anywhere. Geologically, it's part of the ancient African Shield and was later developed by extensive volcanic activity. Around 30 million years ago, these massive outpourings of lava blanketed the region, which created what is now recognized as one of the largest continuous volcanic plateaus on the planet. This system has produced dramatic escarpments, cliffs, and valleys that define its landscape. The climate here varies with altitude, but it's generally cooler and wetter than the surrounding lowlands. It receives substantial rainfall during the summer monsoon season, which feeds the rivers that have carved deep gorges into the landscape. Among these rivers is the Blue Nile, which begins at Lake Tana in the Northwest Highlands before going down to the Blue Nile Falls and joining the White Nile in Sudan. These rivers are critical water sources not only for Ethiopia, but for much of northeastern Africa. Unique species of life like the Gelada baboon, the Ethiopian wolf, and the Waila ibex are found only here, and bird life is equally rich, with species like the thick-billed raven and the blue-winged goose being endemic. Unfortunately, centuries of human settlement and farming have reduced the forest cover, and conservation efforts are now crucial to protect what remains of these unique species. These areas are among the earliest centers of agriculture in Africa, with evidence of domesticated plants like teff and barley cultivated thousands of years ago. This area provided fertile soils, moderate climate, and defensible terrain, and made it the heartland of Ethiopian civilizations. Ancient kingdoms too, including Aksum, flourished here. They left behind monuments like the famous obelisks at Aksum, and later in the medieval period, rock-hewn churches at Lalibela was directly carved into the basalt, becoming one of Ethiopia's most iconic cultural landmarks. The way the people developed the highlands and their ways of life are uniquely adapted to this terrain. The terraced agriculture is common here, and it allows the farmers to make use of steep slopes for growing crops like wheat, barley, and coffee. Livestock herding did play a role, though limited grazing land made land use management pretty critical. But the highlands remain densely populated, with cities like Addis Ababa, Gondar, and Mekelle located within this region. Today, the highlands here continue to play a vital role in their economy. Hydroelectric projects on the river, like the Blue Nile, have made the plateau central to their plans for energy development. And tourism is also significant now, as visitors are drawn to the Simien and Belay Mountains, both recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Known as Africa's highest and most extensive plateau, it has shaped civilizations, sustained ecosystems and economies, and it's found nowhere else on Earth. It influenced the course of the Nile River, one of the most important waterways on the planet. Its nickname, the Roof of Africa, is perfect because of its towering presence above the surrounding lowlands and its lasting significance to this continent. Number 13. The Colorado Plateau. The Colorado Plateau is one of the most significant highland regions in North America, covering about 330,000 square kilometers across 4 U.S. states: Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. The average elevation is about 1,500 to 2,100 meters above sea level, with some areas rising a bit higher, making it one of the highest plateaus on the continent. Unlike many plateaus that are defined by barren expanse, this one's characterized by a remarkable variety of landscapes. Its most famous feature, of course, is the Grand Canyon, where the Colorado River has carved through layers of rock to expose nearly 2 billion years of geological history. But beyond the canyon itself, the plateau does include mesas, buttes, natural arches, and huge desert basins, creating a landscape that's rugged and scientifically valuable. The Colorado Plateau is often called a geologic showcase. The visible record here of the rocks includes ancient sand dunes turned to sandstone, shallow sea deposits, and volcanic intrusions. These features attract geologists from all over the world. And the climate across the plateau varies too, depending on elevation, but much of the region is arid to semi-arid. Summers can be very hot in the lower valleys, while winters do bring snow to the higher elevations. Rainfall, of course, is limited, though. The region is influenced by the North American monsoon, which brings summer thunderstorms, and vegetation ranges from desert scrub and sagebrush in lower zones to pinon juniper woodlands and ponderosa pine forests at higher altitudes. The ancestral Puebloans built cliff dwellings here, like those preserved at Mesa Verde, and developed farming systems that supported large communities, despite the environment. Today, the Navajo Nation and Hopi tribe and other indigenous groups maintain strong ties to this plateau. Their lands encompass significant parts of the region, and their cultural traditions continue to be intertwined with the land. However, the plateau does face some environmental pressures. Water scarcity here is a critical issue, with the Colorado River over-allocated to meet the demands of agriculture, cities, and industry, and with intensifying drought cycles placing further strain on ecosystems and communities. Balancing conservation with resource use remains a challenge for the region's future. This area is a living landscape where geology, history, and human life continue to intersect. Number 12. The Deosai Plateau. The Deosai Plateau is in northern Pakistan. It's one of the highest in the world. It averages about 4,100 meters above sea level. It covers an area of around 3,000 square kilometers, and this one too is often called the Roof of the World, which is a term that reflects its elevation and its beauty. It sits between the Karakoram and Himalayan mountain ranges, and it's known for its open grasslands, rolling hills, and amazing views of the snow-capped mountains in the distance. Unlike many high plateaus that are dry and barren, this one supports a surprising amount of plant and animal life thanks to its seasonal snowmelt and alpine meadows. The climate, though, is pretty extreme. Winters are long and severe, with snow covering the plateau for up to 8 months a year. Temperatures can drop well below freezing, making habitation nearly impossible during that time. Summers are short, bringing milder weather that allows for temporary human presence, mainly nomadic herders and some tourists. One cool area is a protected area, the Deosai National Park, established in 1993. This was created primarily to safeguard the endangered Himalayan brown bear. Other wildlife does include snow leopards, red foxes, Himalayan ibex, marmots, and a wide variety of migratory birds that use the plateau as a habitat. Historically, this area has been sparsely inhabited due to the environment. Nomadic tribes do occasionally graze livestock there during the summer months, but permanent settlements are virtually absent. Folklore and local traditions, though, often describe it as a mysterious or even haunted area, which is reflected in its name, Deosai. It can be interpreted as Land of the Giants. While these stories are cultural rather than scientific, they do show that the plateau inspires people who encounter it. Today, it's a popular destination for eco-tourism and adventure travel. Strict regulations limit human impact, though, as the government and conservation organizations aim to protect the ecosystems here. Road access is only possible during the summer months, and even then the conditions can be challenging due to the high-altitude weather. This place is remarkable not just for its elevation, but for its unique blend of ecology and culture. It's a reminder that high-altitude environments too, while inhospitable for permanent settlement, play crucial roles in conservation and regional water systems. Number 11. The Changtang Plateau. The Changtang Plateau is a high-altitude region in the northern part of the Tibetan Plateau, which stretches across the western and northern areas of Tibet into parts of Ladakh in India. It's got an average elevation of about 4,800 to 5,000 meters above sea level, making it one of the loftiest plateaus on the planet. It covers an immense area, over 700,000 square kilometers. Now, the plateau is geologically part of the Greater Tibetan Plateau that was formed by the collision of the Andean and Eurasian tectonic plates about 50 million years ago. That collision pushed up not only the Himalayas, but also the broad expanse of the highlands that make up Tibet. The Changtang is often described as the most isolated section of Tibet, with limited human settlement. Winters here are long and bitterly cold, with temperatures frequently plunging below -30 degrees Celsius. Even summers are cool, and sudden snowstorms are not uncommon there. Precipitation is scarce, which leaves much of the land arid or semi-arid, and because of this elevation, the Changtang largely is treeless. Instead, it's dominated by alpine steppe with hardy grasses and shrubs that provide grazing material for wildlife. The Tibetan antelope, the chiru, the wild yak, and the Tibetan wild ass, or kiang, are some of the most emblematic animals in this region. It's a critical habitat for predators too, like snow leopards and wolves, and to safeguard these ecosystems, China established the Changtang National Nature Reserve in 1993. It covers about 300,000 square kilometers, and it's one of the largest protected areas of the world. Human habitation is sparse, but it's long-standing. Nomadic herders, primarily Tibetan, graze their yak, sheep, and goats on the plateau's grasses, and this traditional lifestyle is one of resilience, with families moving seasonally to find grazing for their animals. Despite those challenges, these communities have preserved cultural practices that are closely tied to this environment. It's not widely visited, of course, due to the remoteness, but it is occasionally explored by scientists and adventurers. For many, it represents one of the last frontiers of wilderness, a landscape where altitude, cold, and isolation define both life and survival. Number 10. The Pamir Plateau. The Pamir Plateau is a high-altitude region in Central Asia that straddles several countries, including Tajikistan, Afghanistan, China, and Kyrgyzstan, with elevations commonly ranging from 3,500 to 4,500 meters, and peaks that rise above 7,000 meters. It's one of the highest on Earth, and it's a critical crossroads of history and culture. Like the Tibetan Plateau, it was uplifted by the ongoing collision between the Andean and Eurasian tectonic plates. The plateau itself is composed of broad valleys and basins. Glaciers and snowfields dominate the higher elevations, which feed the rivers that eventually join the Amu Darya, one of Central Asia's most important waterways. The climate is cold and arid. Winters are extremely harsh, with heavy snowfall and prolonged sub-zero temperatures. Summers, while short, are comparatively mild, allowing for limited agriculture and some seasonal grazing, but vegetation is sparse, consisting mainly of alpine meadows and hardy shrubs. Historically, this area has been a vital link between the East and West. It lay along one of the northern branches of the ancient Silk Road. It served as a corridor for trade, cultural exchange, and movement of armies. Travelers like Marco Polo crossed the region in the 13th century, describing the terrain and sparse population. And today, remnants of this history remain in the form of caravan routes and archaeological finds. Culturally, the region is home to distinct ethnic groups, including the Pamiri people, who speak several Eastern Iranian languages. Their traditions, music, and architecture reflect the isolation and adaptation to this environment. Islam, particularly Ismaili Shiism, the predominant faith, includes local customs and community life. But the plateau is also of geopolitical importance. The location here at the junction of multiple borders has made it a strategically significant area. In the 19th century, it was a focal point during the Great Game between the British and Russian empires, as both powers sought to control access to Central Asia. Even today, the region remains a sensitive frontier zone. Modern access to it is mainly through a highway, one of the highest roads in the world that was built during the Soviet era. It connects Dushanbe, the capital of Tajikistan, with Osh in Kyrgyzstan, traversing mountain passes over 4,000 meters high. This road is a vital supply route and a draw for adventurers. This plateau is a place where isolation has preserved unique traditions, while also shaping our resilience in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. Number 9. The Andean Altiplano. The Andean Altiplano, sometimes called the Puna de Atacama in its southern stretches, is one of the highest plateaus around, averaging between 3,600 and 4,000 meters above sea level. It goes across large portions of Bolivia, southern Peru, and northern Chile, and northwestern Argentina. It is second in size only to the Tibetan Plateau, covers roughly 500,000 square kilometers. This whole area is a landscape that is shaped by tectonics, volcanism, and climatic extremes. This is a vast, wide plateau that's flanked by the eastern and western cordilleras of the Andes. This uplift of tectonic plates created a relatively flat intermontane basin at high altitude. This volcanic activity, too, has further contributed to the topography, leaving behind these extensive lava flows, high peaks, and large salt flats. One of the most famous features of the Andean Altiplano is the Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia. This is the world's largest salt flat. It spans more than 10,000 square kilometers, and it was formed from the evaporation of prehistoric lakes. It's not only striking, but it's also a critical resource. It contains some of the planet's largest lithium reserves. Other notable features include the Salar de Atacama in Chile and a series of high-altitude lakes like Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world. But at these high elevations, temperatures do fluctuate dramatically between day and night. During the day, strong solar radiation warms the land, but after sunset, the temperatures drop quickly, often below freezing. Rainfall is limited to and highly seasonal, concentrated in the austral summer months, and much of the plateau is arid or semi-arid, with deserts such as the Atacama forming some of the driest areas on Earth. Vegetation is sparse and it's dominated by hardy grass, shrubs, and cushion plants. Today, indigenous groups such as the Aymara and Quechua continue to live on the plateau, raising llamas and alpacas and cultivating traditional crops like potatoes and quinoa. Major cities like La Paz and El Alto in Bolivia sit within the Altiplano, and it makes them some of the world's highest metropolitan areas. This whole area stands out as not only one of the highest plateaus on Earth, but also one of the most culturally important. It bridges the natural extremes of altitude with centuries of human adaptation. Number 8. The Ladakh Plateau. The Ladakh Plateau, located in northern India's Union Territory of Ladakh, is one of the highest inhabited plateaus in the world. Its average elevation is around 3,000 to 5,000 meters, with valleys, plains, and mountain passes that push even higher. Surrounded by the Himalayas and the Karakoram Range, the Ladakh Plateau is strategically significant too. It forms part of the Greater Tibetan Plateau system, and it was shaped by the same collision between the Indian and Eurasian plates. It's characterized by mountains, wide valleys, and high-altitude deserts, and glaciers feed the region's rivers, including the Indus, which flows through Ladakh before continuing on to Pakistan. The climate, of course, is extreme and largely arid. It lies in the rain shadow of the Himalayas, and that results in low annual precipitation, much of it falling as snow. Summers are short and relatively warm during the day, but still cold at night, while the winters are long and severe. Oxygen levels, too, at this altitude are also pretty low. That makes physical exertion more difficult for visitors. But despite the harsh environment, it's supported human settlements for centuries. It's home to a mix of cultural influences, including Tibetan Buddhism and Islam. Monasteries like Himistiski and Lama Yuru are prominent cultural landmarks, which reflects the centuries of religious tradition here. Leh, the main city of Ladakh, has historically been a key trading center too, linking Tibet with Central Asia through its caravan routes. High-altitude wildlife too includes snow leopards, Himalayan ibex, blue sheep, and some migratory birds like black-necked cranes. Several areas have been designated as protected zones, including the Highest National Park, which is known as a stronghold for snow leopards. In modern times, though, Ladakh has gained attention for tourism and, unfortunately, geopolitics. Adventure travelers are drawn to the trekking routes, and mountain passes like Kardung La are stark landscapes. And at the same time, the position near the borders with China and Pakistan has made it strategically sensitive with significant military presence. This combination of natural challenges, the cultural richness, and strategic significance makes the Ladakh Plateau one of the most remarkable ones in the world. Moving on to number 7, the Ruwenzori Plateau. The Ruwenzori Plateau is within the greater mountain range of the same name. This is a range that straddles the border between Uganda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's also known as the Mountains of the Moon. This high plateau region is at elevations ranging between 3,000 and 4,500 meters above sea level. Unlike volcanic ranges like the Kilimanjaro or Mount Kenya range, the Ruwenzori are fault block mountains. This origin accounts for the rugged terrain of these steep peaks that are interspersed with high valleys and basins. The plateau areas exist between the ridges, forming flat or gently sloping expanses. These uplands act as catchment zones, feeding the glaciers, rivers, and wetlands. It has a range of ecosystems stacked one above the other. Lower slopes are covered in tropical rainforest, but as the elevation increases, this gives way to bamboo forests, montane heaths, and eventually Afro-alpine moorlands. Above 3,500 meters, the vegetation changes dramatically. These plants, adapted to the daily life cycles of freezing nights and strong daytime sun, are found only in these places on Earth. Wildlife here is distinctive. Elephants, chimpanzees, and various species of monkeys inhabit the lower slopes, while the plateau grasslands and moorlands are home to unique species like the Ruwenzori turako, a brightly colored bird found only in this region. Other alpine species include small mammals like hyraxes and rodents that are adapted to the thin air and cold temperatures. Tourism plays a role in the region since it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, though it's restricted by both access and conservation priorities. Treks through the area here often pass through high plateau areas, which allow visitors to experience the alpine vegetation and the views of the snow-capped mountains. However, the difficulty of access, unpredictable weather, and political instability in the region limit a large-scale tourism. In the broader context of high plateaus, the Ruwenzori is unique. It's not huge, nor does it support millions of people like Tibet or the Altiplano. Instead, its importance lies in ecological zones that are compressed into high-altitude basins, its role in regional water systems, and its cultural history as the fabled Mountains of the Moon. It's a plateau where biology intersects with geography in ways that rarely are seen anywhere else on the planet. Number 6. The Antarctic Polar Plateau. The Antarctic Polar Plateau is one of the most extreme environments on Earth. It's located in the interior of Antarctica, and it lies at an average elevation of about 3,000 meters, with certain points like Dome A and Dome C that go above 4,000 meters. It covers more than 1 million square kilometers. The Antarctic Plateau is huge. It's flat, and it's dominated by the East Antarctic ice sheet. Geologically, this plateau consists of a bedrock base that's covered by thousands of meters of ice. In some places, the sheet is more than 4 kilometers thick. Unlike other high plateaus formed primarily by tectonic uplift, this plateau's elevation is due largely to the accumulation of ice over millions of years. The climate is obviously beyond extreme. The average winter temperature drops below -60 degrees Celsius, and the lowest temperature ever recorded on Earth, around -89 degrees Celsius at Vostok Station in 1983, was measured on this plateau. Even summer temperatures rarely rise above -20 Celsius. Winds are often katabatic, flowing downslope from the ice sheet and intensifying cold conditions, and precipitation is minimal, with some areas receiving less than 50 millimeters of snow annually, making it technically a desert despite the immense ice. Several international stations are located on the surface of it, including Russia's Vostok Station, France and Italy's Concordia Station at Dome C, and China's Kunlun Station at Dome A. These outposts there allow scientists to study the glaciology, astronomy, meteorology, and atmospheric sciences in conditions that are just unmatched anywhere else. For instance, the thickness of the ice allows researchers to drill deep ice cores, which provides climate records that span hundreds of thousands of years. And of course, astronomy has benefited from the plateau's conditions here. Dome A and Dome C are among the best places on the planet for astronomical observations because of the thin, dry, and stable atmosphere above it. Some projects have installed telescopes here to take advantage of skies comparable to those in space-based observatories. Life, of course, on the plateau is extremely limited. Unlike Tibet or the Andes, there are no permanent human settlements, no agriculture, and no indigenous communities. Only microbial life has been found in the subglacial lakes like Lake Vostok, buried under kilometers of ice. These discoveries are of interest not only for the earth sciences, but also for astrobiology. They may offer analogs for potential life on icy worlds like Europa or Enceladus. Number 5. The Oymyakon Plateau. The Oymyakon Plateau is located in the Sakha Republic of northeastern Siberia. It is one of the most remarkable high plateaus, not because it reaches extreme elevations like Tibet or Andes, but because of the unique environmental extremes created by its altitude, latitude, and location. It sits at an average elevation of around 750 to 1,200 meters, and it may not appear at first glance to rank among the highest on Earth. Yet its inclusion in this list is justified by the extreme conditions and its prominence within the highland systems of eastern Siberia. The plateau forms part of the larger East Siberian uplands. This is a complex of mountain ranges and high plateaus between the Lena and the Indigakira rivers. It rose into an undulating plateau dissected by valleys and rivers. Permafrost, of course, dominates the landscape here, with frozen ground extending hundreds of meters deep in places. And that frozen foundation shapes everything from hydrology to vegetation, as water can't easily drain and soils remain locked in ice for most of the year. This place is widely recognized as one of the coldest permanently inhabited places on Earth. The village of Oymyakon, situated on the plateau, has recorded temperatures below -67 degrees Celsius, which rivals Antarctica's record lows. These extremes result from the plateau's elevation, combined with its position deep in the Eurasian continent. Cold air tends to pool in the valleys and basins of the plateau during winter, which creates a cold trap, which effectively drives the temperatures to record-setting lows. Summers, by contrast, can be surprisingly warm, with daytime highs exceeding 30 degrees Celsius, and that temperature range from some of the coldest winters on Earth to relatively hot summers makes the plateau an example of continental climate at its most extreme. Human habitation here is sparse, but it's continuous. The indigenous Yakut or the Sakha people have long adapted to life in this environment, raising horses and cattle despite the permafrost. Buildings also have to be constructed on stilts or insulated bases to prevent heat from melting the permafrost, which would destabilize a foundation. The Sakha Republic is rich in diamonds, gold, and other minerals, though extraction is often limited by the remoteness. Roads, when built, are vulnerable to buckling and cracking as the ground thaws and shifts. Air transport's the only reliable link in for supplies, which shows the isolation of these highlands and its people. Number 4. The Kunlun Plateau. The Kunlun Plateau, located in western China, is one of the great highland regions of Asia. It averages around 4,500 meters in elevation, with certain ridges and valleys climbing even higher. The Kunlun Mountains, which give the plateau its structure, are among the longest mountain chains in Asia, extending more than 3,000 kilometers. Over millions of years, tectonic compression thrust up both mountain ridges and the broad plateau surfaces that now lie between them. And this upland consists of folded sedimentary rock volcanic deposits and basement crystalline rocks. But the climate here is pretty severe and highly arid. It lies in a double rain shadow, shielded from moisture by both the Himalayas to the south and the Pamirs to the west. As a result, precipitation here is extremely low, often less than 100 millimeters a year. Much of the plateau is therefore desert or semi-desert, with bare rock, gravel plains, and sparse vegetation. The plateau is lightly populated due to the harsh environment. The nomadic herders graze yak, sheep, and goats in limited grasslands, and they move seasonally to follow the pastures. Archaeological evidence indicates that small communities here have occupied the fringes of the Kunlun for millennia, adapting to the scarce resources. Today's settlements, though, are mostly concentrated in river valleys or at lower elevations where water is available. Economically speaking, the plateau has been important for mineral resources. Deposits of jade, particularly nephrite, have been mined here for thousands of years. Hotan jade from the Kunlun was highly prized in ancient China, shaping art, ritual objects, and trade. and in modern times the region's also been investigated for hydrocarbons and other minerals, though large-scale development is limited by the remoteness. The plateau does also play a role in regional geopolitics. It borders areas of strategic interest, like Xinjiang to the north and Tibet to the south, and military installations and transport routes in the region show its importance to China's national security. The Karakoram Highway, linking China and Pakistan, passes nearby, which shows the connectivity of this high plateau zone with a broader Central Asian network. As part of the Greater Highland Belt of Asia, it's a key piece of the world's plateau landscapes. Number 3. The Pamirs Karakoram Plateau. The Pamirs Karakoram Plateau. It lies at the meeting point of several of the world's great mountain systems, the Himalayas, the Karakoram, the Hindu Kush, and the Tian Shan. This plateau averages 4 to 4,500 meters in elevation. It's one of the highest continuous uplands on Earth, and it plays a central role in the geography of Central and South Asia. Of course, it is known as the roof of the world. It's a region where tectonics and climate and human culture all intersect in extraordinary ways. The plateau consists of folded sedimentary rocks, granites, and metamorphic complexes with deep valleys and high ridges that give it ruggedness and expanses of level ground at remarkable heights. While the plateau itself averages around 4,500 meters, mountains like Kongur Ta at 7,600 meters in Pakistan rise dramatically from the fringes. Glaciers here, too, are extensive, including the Siachen Glacier, the Karakoram, and the Fredjenko Glaciers in the Pamirs, both among the largest outside the polar regions. And of course, the climate is severe. Winters are long, cold, and snowy, while summer rains remain cool even at lower elevations. Vegetation is sparse, limited to alpine meadows and hardy shrubs, maybe some scattered grasses. And despite those limitations, the plateau does support a unique ecosystem. It's got populations of Marco Polo sheep, snow leopards, ibex, and Himalayan brown bears. Human settlement here has been sparse but continuous. Nomadic herding of yaks, goats, and sheep remains the main livelihood. Villages are small, clustered in valleys where rivers provide irrigation for barley, wheat, and potatoes. Groups here have maintained distinct languages, traditions, and strategies for survival in one of the harshest places on the planet. Marco Polo described his journey through the Pamirs in the 13th century, noting that the thin air and the barren landscape. In the 19th century, the plateau became a focal point of the great game between Russian and British empires, as both of them sought influence over Central Asia. Even today, the borders are strategically significant, with China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Tajikistan all meeting in this region. Modern infrastructure here has slowly penetrated the plateau, most notably the Karakoram Highway, which connects China and Pakistan across the Kunjarab Pass. This road is one of the highest paved highways in the world. It's opened the region to trade, tourism, and closer geopolitical ties. However, much of the plateau remains inaccessible. It is a plateau where natural extremes and human determination meet, shaping cultures and ecosystems that endure against all odds. Number 2. The Altai Plateau. The Altai Plateau is at the crossroads of 4 countries: Russia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and China. It forms part of the broader Altai mountain system. It averages about 1,500 to 2,500 meters above sea level, with peaks and ridges climbing much higher. Its position that links Siberia, Mongolia, and the Central Asian steppes has made it important both geographically and culturally. Geologically, it's ancient. The rocks here date back hundreds of millions of years, with the region shaped by tectonic events, including the collision of the continental plates that eventually formed the Eurasian landmass. Still, glaciers and rivers continue to carve away at the landscape, which leave behind these amazing features like U-shaped valleys, moraines, and high alpine lakes. The climate is harsh but beautiful. Winters here are long and cold, and temperatures dropping well below freezing for months at a time, while the summers are short and they can be surprisingly warm. And this mix of climates does support a diverse range of systems, from steppe grasslands and taiga forests to alpine tundra at higher elevations. It provides habitats for species like the snow leopard, the Siberian ibex, Argali sheep, and the brown bear. Birdlife, too, is abundant, with golden eagles and lammergeiers. Those are the bearded vultures, which are common in higher areas. Alpine lakes like Lake Teletskoy in Russia and Khotan Lake in Mongolia are important freshwater reservoirs, and they also draw ecological interest, too. Today, the plateau is relatively sparsely populated. Nomadic pastoralism still continues in Mongolia and Kazakhstan, where herders move seasonally with the sheep, goats, and horses. In Russia and China, small villages rely on livestock, forestry, and increasingly tourism. The plateau has also gained some recognition for its culture. The Golden Mountains of Altai, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, encompasses parts of the plateau and show the combination of beauty and heritage found here. The Altai Plateau is distinctive. Among the world's plateaus, it may not reach the extreme elevations of Tibet or the Andes, but it stands out for its position as a meeting ground of climates and cultures. For this reason, it's long been regarded as both a crossroads and a cultural heartland. It embodies the diversity and resilience of highland Asia. Number 1. The Tibetan Plateau. The Tibetan Plateau is the roof of the world. It's not often called that. It is the roof of the world. It's the highest and largest plateau on Earth. It stretches across roughly 2.5 million square kilometers, an area 4 times the size of France, and averages more than 4,500 meters above sea level. Nothing else on the planet combines this immense size with staggering altitude, which is why it's been central to not only Asia's geography, but also to our global climate and human history. Around 50 million years ago, the Andean plate began pushing into the Eurasian plate. This is an event that continues today, and this collision thickened the Earth's crust beneath Tibet, in some places to nearly 70 kilometers, forcing it upward into a massive uplifted block rather than a narrow range. The same forces that built the Himalayas also created this colossal plateau. Conditions here are obviously extreme. The air pressure at these heights is only about 60% of sea level, which makes oxygen scarce and physical activity pretty difficult. Winters are long and bitterly cold, while the summers are short and cool, with huge swings in temperature between day and night. And of course, rainfall is uneven, heavier in the southeast where the monsoon winds bring moisture, and much lower in the northwest where deserts and semi-arid grasslands dominate. The scale of ice and snow stored on the Tibetan Plateau has earned it the title also of the Third Pole, alongside Antarctica and the Arctic. It's the source of many of Asia's greatest rivers, including the Yangtze, the Yellow River, the Mekong, Ganges, Indus, and the Brahmaputra. These rivers sustain nearly half of the world's population downstream. Because of this, scientists and governments often describe Tibet as the water tower of Asia. Tibetan culture is deeply connected to the landscape. Buddhism, which spread across Tibet more than 1,000 years ago, is central here, with monasteries, stupas, and prayer flags marking the plateau. Sacred peaks and lakes like Mount Kailash and Lake Namtso are revered by Tibetans and followers of other religions across Asia. The plateau, too, is home to wildlife that's uniquely adapted to this environment. The Tibetan antelope, wild yak, snow leopard, and bar-headed goose. Many of these species face pressures from habitat loss and human activity, though large conservation areas like a national park have been created to protect them. In recent decades, though, the plateau has been a bit transformed by modern infrastructure. The Qinghai-Tibet Railway, completed in 2006, connects Lhasa with the rest of China, which crosses permafrost and climbs altitudes above 5,000 meters. Tourism, too, weirdly, has grown rapidly, with visitors drawn to Mount Everest and Potala Palace and other iconic sites. These changes bring in economic benefits, but they do raise concerns about damage and cultural erosion. Scientists view the Tibetan Plateau as one of the world's most important laboratories. Ice cores drilled here have provided records stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, helping researchers understand ancient greenhouse gas concentrations and ice age cycles. The plateau's elevation affects the atmospheric circulation across the northern hemisphere, and its glaciers act as indicators of how global warming is unfolding. Some astronomers even argue that the thin, dry air above the plateau here makes it one of the best places on Earth for telescopes. But what sets the Tibetan Plateau apart is not the scale of it, but the global reach of it. It influences weather patterns, stores water for billions of people, it supports unique cultures that have adapted to life in the thin air, yet it's also under enormous pressure from change, modernization, and political tensions. Its glaciers are shrinking, the permafrost is thawing, and ecosystems are being strained by development. How the Tibetan Plateau changes in the coming decades is going to affect much of the world, from agriculture in India to industry in China, and from biodiversity in the Himalayas to climate systems across the world.